So hi everyone, today we'll try to understand what is Docker. So I have been making videos around algorithms and machine learning stuff, but not this time, just for a change. Let's try to understand the basics of Docker and what actually it does. So beginning with a particular scenario, assume that you are a developer and you just coded out some application on a local environment. Now the app looks good, it's working fine on a local environment. You wish to deploy it on the staging environment. Right. Now, as soon as you deploy that app on your staging environment, the app just crashes out. Your code just bursts out. Something like this. So, what actually has happened? Like the logic looks right because eventually, as it was working on a local system, it should have worked on the staging environment also, right? So, why once the environment is changing, your app is breaking down? So, the core can be behind like this. A very common saying in software development. Feel that this worked on my system but not on your system. So what is the reason behind this problem? It is because the dependencies required for a particular project were present on a local but not on staging. Like for example, it might be the case that on a local system you would be working on the latest Python version, say 3.9, but in case of staging the Python version hasn't been updated yet. So the Python version available is 3.6, and hence as there is a mismatch of dependencies, your app crashed out. So can this problem be avoided? Yes, this is what Docker does. So let's first of all understand what does the name means. So basically a dock is an area of water in a port where goods are put onto and taken off ships, or ships are repaired. So I think you must have seen a dock in once in your life. It has nothing to do with software engineering, but yes, the concept of Docker comes from that dock only. What type of goods? Any type of goods it can carry. How? It has in a dock, they have huge containers, you must have seen, as you can see in the image. And where to deliver? They can be delivered anywhere, irrespective of the state or country. मतलब कि, on a geographical note, so you have license, you need to require a license. But yes, in terms of the pathway present, if there is a pathway, if there is a path, so it can go to any country, it can go to any state. So the whole concept of Docker is taken from docs only. So basically, in terms of software engineering, the goods that a ship carries on a dock becomes our software, the application that we develop. The metallic containers can be taken as standalone packages, encapsulating, wrapping up the logic of your application alongside the dependencies that you require. So it might be the case that you build out some particular application which requires Python, which requires Flask, which may require scikit-learn as well. So all these requirements alongside the logic of your code form the container, and Doc is basically like an environment. So the entire concept of Docker you can like simulate with now the actual dock. So goods becomes the software that you have. Metallic URL container, as we have in docs, becomes our uh, the combination of the dependencies and the logic, and docs become our the actual docs become our different environments that we talk about. So this is what the concept of Docker is. Docker helps us to containerize our apps, and then these containers can be taken from one position and can be deployed on any other environment, irrespective of the dependency. So now the whole concept is that you need to try and test your app once, you put it in a container, and now this whole container is getting deployed on some other environment. So no dependencies issues now. So let's first of all walk through a few key concepts of Docker. So images. So these are the building blocks of a Docker. Uh, of Docker, which incorporates the recipe to create a Docker container. So, like for example, if you wish to create a web app using Flask, so the image will contain instructions to set up Python, uh, Flask version that you require, and other libraries that it requires. So an image is basically an environment you can take, which fulfills the requirements that you wish to have for your project. So like for example, in this web app you might be requiring multiple libraries, so this image will contain all these libraries. Now an interesting point is that one image can be used to create another image also. So it can be the case that you have a baseline image which consists of Python 3.x. Now you wish to develop, now you wish to train a machine learning model, so you would require a scikit-learn also. You might require keras, TensorFlow, PyTorch also. So in that case, using that baseline image, you can add instructions to install TensorFlow, keras also, and eventually now it becomes a image 2 that has taken that has been derived from image 1. Container, any running instance of an Docker image is called as a container. It is as easy as that. So once an image is getting deployed on any environment, it becomes a container. Docker server and Docker client. Now this is something very interesting. Docker server is a daemon process, a process that is running in background once you install Docker. So once you install Docker, it's running. So there is a continuous process that is running behind it. So whenever you call it, comes out, which take command from the Docker client. So through CLI or Docker app. So Docker client is a way using which developers pass commands to Docker server. So basically, Docker client is the interface using which we as a developer are interacting with the Docker server, giving it instructions. Ki, okay, now install this, now add this instruction, now deploy this image, like things like this. As you can see, run a container, create an image, remove container, etc. So Docker client is basically an interface that is connecting the developer and the Docker server. What is a Docker file? So this is the most important, the crucial file in terms of Docker. So this is the file that holds up all the information that your Docker image will incorporate. So install this package, install this particular package, remove this file. All these instructions will be present in the Docker file. Registries. So once you are done with your image creation, you wish to store it somewhere. So registries are the place where you would be storing your Docker images. Now registries can be both public and private. So we won't be discussing much on that. So let's recapitulate the entire process, how a Docker image would look like. So first of all, you will code up your app in any of the editor like VS Editor, PyCharm. You create a Docker file. Now Docker file will have the instructions to install all the libraries requirement, etc. Now Docker client will give a command to Docker server to build image using this Docker file. Makes sense. So Docker client is nothing but an interface through which we as a developer are interacting with the Docker server. So we are giving an instruction to the Docker server to using the Docker file create an image for me. Once the image is built, it can be deployed, and Docker client gives Docker server again a command to run this image to form a container. Now, if you wish, you can put this image into public or private registry as well. Now coming to the end, why should one use Docker? So the first point is it is very fast and very lightweight in nature. So an app on your local system may take just seconds to launch on any environment. Apart from that, as a developer, what I feel that I won't be now worried about different versions to maintain on different environments. So it is taken care by Docker now. Testing becomes very fast. And the last point is maintaining microservices architecture becomes very easy with Docker. So it can be the case that your backend is interacting with some database, which in turn is giving some results, which in turn goes to the front end. So you can say there are 2 to 3 entities present here. So all these entities can be kept in Docker containers, which can help us to promote microservices.